My name is Lucy, and if you'd told me a year ago that a single bank statement would change everything I thought I knew about my family, I would have laughed. I always believed that my mom was doing her best, that money was tight, and that if I just worked hard enough, I could make things better for all of us. But sometimes the truth is hiding in plain sight, and all it takes is one moment of curiosity to turn your whole world upside down. Growing up, I was the kid who never asked for much. I wore hand-me-downs, packed my own lunches, and learned early on not to complain. My mom, Sharon, was a master at stretching every dollar. She clipped coupons, shopped sales, and always seemed to know exactly how much was left in the grocery budget. My dad left when I was 8, and after that, it was just the two of us. She worked two jobs, waitressing at a diner in the mornings and cleaning offices at night. I admired her grit, her determination, and the way she always found a way to make things work, even when it seemed impossible. But there was always an undercurrent of anxiety in our house. Bills piled up on the kitchen counter, and I learned to recognize the look on my mom's face when she was worried about money. I got used to hearing, "We can't afford that," or "maybe next year," whenever I asked for something extra, a field trip, a new pair of shoes, or even just a night out with friends. I told myself it didn't matter, that I was lucky to have a roof over my head and food on the table. School was my escape. I threw myself into my studies, determined to earn a scholarship and make a better life for myself and my mom. I joined every club I could, volunteered at the library, and spent late nights hunched over textbooks at the kitchen table. My teachers noticed my hard work, and by the time senior year rolled around, I was at the top of my class. I started applying to colleges, dreaming of a future where money wouldn't be the thing that held me back. But as acceptance letters started arriving, reality hit hard. Tuition, even with scholarships, was more than we could ever afford. I sat down with my mom one night, my heart pounding, and asked her if we could make it work. She looked tired, her eyes shadowed with worry. "Lucy, I'm so proud of you," she said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "But we just can't afford college right now. Maybe you could take a year off, work, and save up. I wish things were different, honey. I really do." I nodded, trying to hide my disappointment. I knew she was right. I'd seen the bills, the empty fridge, the way she counted every penny. But a part of me couldn't let go of the dream. I started looking for jobs, filling out applications, and telling my friends I'd figure something out. I tried to stay positive, but every time I saw someone post about their college plans, I felt a pang of envy and frustration. One afternoon, I came home from school to find my mom sorting through paperwork at the kitchen table. She looked up, startled, and quickly shoved a stack of envelopes into a drawer. "Just paying some bills," she said, forcing a smile. I shrugged it off, but something about the way she moved, quick, almost guilty, stuck with me. That night, after she left for her cleaning job, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the drawer. I knew it was wrong to snoop, but curiosity got the better of me. I opened the drawer and started flipping through the envelopes. Most were the usual: utility bills, credit card statements, medical bills. But then I found something that made my heart stop. A bank statement from an account I'd never seen before, with my name on it. The balance was more than I'd ever imagined, tens of thousands of dollars. I stared at the numbers, my mind racing. Where had this money come from? Why hadn't she ever mentioned it? I flipped through the rest of the paperwork, looking for answers, but all I found were more statements, all with the same account number, all with large deposits and almost no withdrawals. I put everything back exactly as I'd found it, my hands shaking. I couldn't sleep that night, my mind spinning with questions. Was my mom hiding money from me? Was she saving for something else? Or was there some explanation I hadn't thought of? The next morning, I tried to act normal, but I couldn't stop thinking about the secret account. I watched my mom as she made breakfast, wondering if she could tell that I knew. I wanted to ask her about it, but I was afraid of what she might say. What if she got angry? What if she told me it was none of my business? What if the money wasn't even really hers? Days passed and the secret weighed on me. I started noticing little things: my mom's new shoes, the way she never seemed as stressed about money as she used to be, the fact that she'd stopped working extra shifts at the diner. I wondered if she was planning something, if she had a reason for keeping the money hidden. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. One night after dinner, I sat down across from her at the kitchen table. "Mom," I said, my voice trembling, "can I ask you something?" She looked up, surprised. "Of course, honey. What's on your mind?" I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. "Do you have a bank account you haven't told me about?" She froze, her eyes wide. For a moment, I thought she was going to deny it. But then she sighed, her shoulders slumping. "Lucy, I can explain." My mom's face was a mix of fear and exhaustion. She looked older in that moment, as if the weight of every secret she'd ever carried was pressing down on her. I waited, my hands clenched in my lap, as she gathered her thoughts. The silence stretched between us, thick and uncomfortable, until finally she spoke. "I never wanted you to find out this way," she said quietly. "I was going to tell you, I didn't know how." She reached for my hand, her grip trembling. "That account, it's not what you think. It's not some big windfall or lottery win. It's money I've been saving for years. Every extra tip, every bonus, every little bit I could scrape together. I started it when you were in middle school, after your dad left. I wanted to make sure you'd have something, just in case." I stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. "But why didn't you use it for college? Why did you tell me we couldn't afford it?" She looked away, her eyes shadowed with tears. "Because I was scared, Lucy. Scared that if we spent it all now, we'd have nothing left if something went wrong. I kept thinking, what if I lose my job? What if you get sick? What if the car breaks down and we can't fix it? I wanted to protect you, to make sure we'd always have a safety net. I know it wasn't fair to you. I didn't know what else to do." Her words hit me like a punch. I'd spent weeks feeling betrayed, angry, and hurt, but now all I felt was a deep, aching sadness. I understood her fear, her need to protect me, but I also couldn't ignore the disappointment that she hadn't trusted me enough to share the truth. "I wish you'd told me," I whispered. "I wish we could have figured it out together." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "You're right, I should have. I'm sorry, Lucy, I really am." We sat in silence for a while, the only sound the hum of the refrigerator and the distant bark of a neighbor's dog. I thought about all the times I'd watched my mom struggle, all the sacrifices she'd made, and all the ways I'd tried to make her proud. I realized that for both of us, fear had been the thing holding us back, her fear of losing everything and my fear of not being enough. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying our conversation over and over. I wondered what would happen next. Would my mom use the money for my college now? Would she still try to hold on to it just in case? I didn't know, but I decided I needed to take control of my own future, no matter what. The next day, I started looking for scholarships and grants I might have missed. I talked to my guidance counselor, who helped me find a few more options. I even applied for a part-time job at the campus bookstore, hoping to cover some of my expenses. I was determined to make college happen, with or without my mom's help. A week later, my mom came into my room, holding the bank statement. She sat on the edge of my bed, her expression serious. "Lucy, I've been thinking. You're right. This money was always meant for you. I want you to use it for college. I'll figure out the rest." I hugged her, relief and gratitude flooding through me. For the first time in months, I felt like we were on the same team. We spent the next few days going over my college expenses, making a budget, and figuring out how to make the money stretch as far as possible. It wasn't enough to cover everything, but it was a start. As summer turned to fall, I packed my bags and prepared to leave for college. My mom helped me shop for supplies, loaded up the car, and drove me to campus. We hugged goodbye in the parking lot, both of us crying a little. "I'm proud of you, Lucy," she whispered. "Don't ever forget that." College was everything I'd hoped it would be, challenging, exciting, and full of new possibilities. I made friends, joined clubs, and threw myself into my classes. I worked part-time at the bookstore, studied late into the night, and called my mom every Sunday to tell her about my week. We talked more honestly than we ever had before, sharing our fears and hopes, and learning to trust each other again. But even as I settled into my new life, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to my mom's story. I started to notice little things: phone calls she took in another room, letters that arrived with no return address, and a tension in her voice whenever I asked about the past. I wondered if there were other secrets she was still too afraid to share. One weekend, I came home for a visit and found her sitting at the kitchen table staring at an old photo album. She looked up as I walked in, her eyes distant. "Lucy, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you a long time ago." My heart pounded as I sat down across from her, bracing myself for whatever was coming next. My mom closed the photo album and took a deep breath, her hands trembling just a little. I could see the weight of whatever she was about to say pressing down on her, and for a moment I wanted to tell her it was okay, that she didn't have to share. But I also knew that if we were ever going to move forward, we had to stop hiding from each other. She slid the album across the table, opening it to a page I'd never really noticed before. There was a picture of her, much younger, standing in front of a small brick building with a sign that read, "Sharon's Cafe." She was smiling, her arm around a man I didn't recognize. "That was my first business," she said quietly. "I opened it before you were born, with a partner named David. We worked hard, but after a few years, things got complicated. David wanted to expand, take on debt, but I was scared. I'd just found out I was pregnant with you, and I didn't want to risk everything." She paused, tracing the edge of the photo. "We argued. In the end, I sold my share to him and walked away. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I always wondered what would have happened if I'd stayed. After your dad left, I reached out to David for help, but he'd moved on. Still, every year he sent me a check. Just a little, but enough to help. That's where some of the money in the secret account came from." I stared at her, trying to process this new version of my mom, a woman who had taken risks, made mistakes, and carried regrets I'd never known about. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" I asked softly. She shrugged, her eyes shining. "I was ashamed. I didn't want you to think I'd failed. I wanted you to see me as strong, as someone who could handle anything. But the truth is, I was scared. I was scared of losing everything, of not being enough for you." I reached across the table and took her hand. "You've always been enough, Mom. I wish you'd let me carry some of that weight." We sat in silence for a while, the air between us finally clear. I realized that my mom wasn't just the woman who'd pinched pennies and worked double shifts. She was someone who'd dreamed big, lost, and kept going anyway. I felt closer to her than I ever had before. That night, I lay in bed thinking about everything she'd told me. I thought about the sacrifices she'd made, the secrets she'd kept, and the ways we'd both tried to protect each other from disappointment. I realized that for the first time, I didn't feel angry or betrayed. I felt proud, proud of my mom and proud of myself for finally asking the hard questions. Back at college, I threw myself into my studies with a new sense of purpose. I started looking for ways to give back, volunteering at a local food bank and tutoring kids from low-income families. I wanted to use what I'd learned, not just in the classroom, but from my mom, to help others who were struggling. I realized that my story wasn't just about money or secrets. It was about resilience, about finding hope even when things seemed impossible. My relationship with my mom continued to grow. We talked more openly, sharing our fears and dreams, and learning to trust each other in new ways. She started coming to visit me on campus, bringing homemade cookies and stories from her own college days. I loved seeing her smile, watching her let go of some of the burdens she'd carried for so long. One afternoon, as we walked through the campus gardens, she turned to me and said, "Lucy, I want you to promise me something. Promise me you'll never let fear stop you from chasing your dreams. Promise me you'll take risks even if you're scared." I smiled, squeezing her hand. "I promise, Mom, and I want you to promise me something too. Promise me you'll let yourself be happy, that you'll stop carrying the past like a weight around your neck." She laughed, tears in her eyes. "Deal." As the semester went on, I started to see my mom not just as a parent, but as a person, flawed, complicated, and brave. I realized that we were both learning to let go of the past, to forgive ourselves and each other, and to move forward with hope.
The next time I came home, I found my mom in the kitchen, humming to herself as she cooked dinner. The house felt lighter, brighter, as if a storm had finally passed. We ate together, talking and laughing, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly at home.
That night, as I packed my bag to head back to school, my mom handed me an envelope. Inside was a check, enough to cover my tuition for the next semester. "It's not everything," she said, "but it's a start. I want you to have the future you deserve, Lucy." I hugged her tight, grateful for everything she'd given me, not just the money, but the truth, the love, and the chance to start over. The next semester felt different, lighter, as if a weight I'd carried for years had finally been set down. I walked across campus with a new sense of confidence, knowing that my mom and I had finally found a way to be honest with each other. I threw myself into my classes, joined a study group, and even signed up for a poetry reading at the campus cafe, something I never would have had the courage to do before. My mom and I talked every few days, sharing stories about our days and laughing about little things. She started taking a painting class at the community center, rediscovering a part of herself she'd buried under years of worry and work. I loved hearing the excitement in her voice as she described her latest project, and I realized that we were both learning how to dream again. One weekend, I invited her to campus for the poetry reading. She sat in the front row, beaming with pride as I read my poem about hope, forgiveness, and starting over. Afterward, she hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "You're amazing, Lucy," she whispered. "I hope you always know that." As the year went on, I kept working at the bookstore and volunteering at the food bank. I made new friends, explored new interests, and started to see a future that was bigger than anything I'd imagined. I realized that the secret account, the money, and even the pain of being told we can't afford it had all shaped me into someone resilient, resourceful, and brave. When summer came, my mom and I took a road trip together. We visited the old cafe where she'd started her first business, and she showed me the spot where she used to dream about a better life. We talked about the past, the mistakes, and the lessons we'd learned. We promised each other that we'd keep moving forward, no matter what. On the last night of our trip, we sat on the hood of the car, watching the stars. My mom turned to me and said, "Lucy, I'm so proud of the woman you're becoming. I know I made mistakes, but I hope you know I always loved you, even when I was scared." I smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace. "I know, Mom, and I love you too. Thank you for trusting me with the truth." If you're listening to my story and you've ever felt like money, secrets, or fear were holding you back, I hope you know that you're not alone. Sometimes the hardest conversations lead to the greatest healing. Sometimes the truth is the key that unlocks a future you never thought possible. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched you, please subscribe and share your own experiences in the comments. Remember, you are stronger than you think, and you deserve a future built on hope, honesty, and love.